she has 2 dogs that she told me she really wanted me to make sure that I told you about because they're her favorite people in her house, especially her new one, Avery. Margaux has been an educator and a counselor for over 20 years, and many a moons ago, although you would never know it, she wrote a dissertation that was basically based on neurobiology, stress, brain, and body, and that has been a passion of hers ever since. In addition to that, she years ago was a graduate of an independent school, so she understands our community a bit, and I have been fortunate enough to have her as a colleague when we were at AU as professors together, and still so happy to call her a friend. We are very fortunate to have her talk with us tonight, as she in a few weeks will be on her way to Australia for a few years. So please welcome Dr. Brown for our discussion.
So incredibly, I'm still jealous and happy for you all that you have the lovely Dr. Kara Diener, who she and Rich Diener, when I interviewed at Augusta University, were the reasons that I said yes. So you have quite a force here. So thank you all for coming on this cold, although I think tomorrow's going to be hot, I don't know. December, maybe, can we have a show of hands? Is anyone in your house sick? No one? Oh, that's okay. I was just connecting with how stressful this time of year is and the sacrifices that you made to be here. So thank you. And it's great to see some familiar faces as well. And if any, I should say parents and caregivers as well. I want to just acknowledge just the pressures that students face today, and just sit here from a place of compassion and empathy. We truly don't know what our youngsters are living and experiencing. I know certainly when I was in school, I thought my mom had come from another planet, and my kids probably think I did too. The point being, we truly don't understand and know what they're experiencing and the challenges. So this session, the tone is about progress and not perfection. It's about an ongoing development, supporting the long game. We're not here for a panacea or something to solve a problem perfectly in the moment and have that last here and forevermore. I'm sorry if that's why you came. I have 2 listening challenges for you tonight. One, try to listen for 1 or 2, tools or ideas that you can implement. I was going to say this week, but then it's like halfway through the exam week. But then we're going into the season of holiday home, and there's stressors there too. So maybe a week does apply to the notion of 1 or 2 tools that you can apply over the next week. I think we're all here because we want to support our kids. We want to support the kids that come into our homes. We want our kids to be a positive influence on their friends. I hope we have a shared goal of helping lower kids' stress. Kara thank you, Kara, for an introduction. I do have a podcast. I have to put these out. Anyways, the QR code for the podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts and all the other things. A special education researcher, Dr. Lisa Rice, and Dr. Vince Collada is a neuropsychologist, and myself as the clinical practitioner. We focus on helping moms who are raising daughters wrestle with the real complex issues that are specific to being a mom raising a girl. There are also concepts that apply to all children as well. So we are going to be taking a break from it. We have, something came up. Hold on. Uh-oh, Karen. Oh, wait, no. Okay. As if you could help with that.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. write a book designed for school counselors and teachers to address the unique needs of girls struggling with learning difficulties, behavior and aggression, anxiety, ADHD, autism, to name a few. So, and yes, my practice will continue. I see American expats living overseas, mostly posted through the State Department and other agencies. So, takeaway here. What are we here for? We're here for how to learn about less panic and more progress on managing stress. You are going to come away with, we're going to start with some science, we're going to go to tools, and then we're going to apply it. And nothing that, if you choose to, we're going to do a little interaction. My students always, it was one consistent thing in the 15 years of teaching was that a consistent feedback was, you can't show up to Dr. Brown's class and not expect to talk or participate. Like, you can't fall asleep in the back. So, now, I realized that you're not paying tuition. Well, at least to me, you're not paying tuition. And so, if you know, your level of participation is appreciated and meant to encourage discussion and learning, but we'll have a lot of participation points throughout tonight. So when we do talk about sharing, nothing here is meant to be a parent failure or something that you're not doing good enough. We are talking about our children's nervous systems, and that nervous system is simply doing its job a little too loudly. So we are here to talk about our children's nervous systems, not our job as parents. And it's not a judgment on us. So a little bit more of the objectives. So as I mentioned, we'll start with science and talk about the nervous system. We do have some case studies. And before we get into the case studies, I'm going to ask a little survey. So please get your phones out for a little QR code to take a little survey. All this is anonymous, and it's like one question, or one question, one answer. And then we'll talk about how this applies to study habits at home and motivation. And I have some very specific, like, instead of saying this, try this. And I'm going to survey a 1-minute survey here. So that's where we're going. So here is our first question. When your child is stressed, what shows up first? And I'm going to look at my phone because I think I'm going to be able to see the answer. You should be able to too. And I should have said this to begin with, and that's okay. I'll clarify it back in the finish. Okay, I'm seeing things come in here. Hopefully you're seeing something that looked like your child, maybe more than one. Looks like some people are finding some things more than others. Some things we have across the board. We have across the board responses in everything. So these really tell us that our kids, we can see when their nervous system is excited. We can see the manifestation of their stress. It's in these times that our kids need support from us, not punishment, not shame. They're already overwhelmed and feeling uncomfortable. I think, okay, I don't know if you can see, may I look and see what somebody else sees? This is a new app. Okay. Oh yes, so you can see the same results. Okay, great. Setting it right. So we can see here that emotional reactions, worry, fear of mistakes, and trouble focusing, motivation, or completing tasks seem to be. Were there any any questions about what any of these are or what it looks like? Wonderful. So from this, I don't know if you were thinking about if you have more than one child that you were thinking about, so I can get an idea of who's in the room and the parents that you are and the kids that you have. By a show of hands, if you are a primary, middle, or high school parent, just raise your hand wherever you fit for however many people you have. Primary? Okay. Middle? Upper school? Wow, so beautifully spoken. To be able to apply the concepts tonight, if you could think, if you have multiple children, think about the one that you think might need a little bit more focus in this area. So when we talk about what you might have experienced or what you might be taking away from it tonight, think about that one child. So we can have a focus there. So again, if we think about these behaviors not as failures or flaws, these are just signals that our kids' nervous systems and their behaviors are giving us that they need help down-regulating, that they need some help. So why is it important to be calm? Why does that even matter? Being calm is what is not, by you being calm and focusing on helping regulate the nervous system, that's not accepting or permitting the behavior they might be struggling with. What it is you are helping them be calm so that they can learn, so that they can tap into their memory, and so that they can grow. So especially when there's outbursts or dysregulated behavior that is maybe not fully willful. We'll talk about will and manipulation in the frequently asked questions later, but for the most part, let's honor the fact that our kids are really needing help being calm, because no one wants to be a failure at school. No one wants to feel like a mess inside. No one wants to feel like they aren't living up to expectations. Those are terrible things and feelings to have. So as parents, we can be like noise canceling headphones for our kids. We can help them learn to shut out the noise so that they can regulate and focus and learn and grow and be calm. So how exactly does this happen? Well, I'm gonna give a little diagram here in a minute. Do we have any medical professionals in the room? Okay. So I'm just gonna apologize. This is like way down. Okay. And please feel free to expand upon the ideas with your knowledge. So in the brain I'm going to talk about a couple of parts of the brain, but I'm going to focus on the amygdala, which is like the sensor for danger. So we're going to call it the smoke alarm. And in times of stress, that smoke alarm is going off. It is saying run, even though there might not be actual danger. And if we're going to think of the prefrontal cortex up here as like our air traffic control. Stress, the big thing here, stress takes away the ability to think clearly in that prefrontal cortex. So we want to emphasize, why is it that the words, and I have said it has been said to me, and Taylor Swift, you need to calm down. I'll try to make less than 5 references to Taylor Swift. it doesn't work because, you know, first of all, our kids' brains up until their mid-20s, as we know now, it's sort of like running this like test mode. It's really trying to figure things out. So I just said this in my own family unit, talking about one of my adolescent children. It's remarkable how much maturity can be seen in one moment, and how much, okay, as a parent, stupidity and just what were you thinking is running through my head and sometimes comes out in like the next moment, right? They're just not all online yet in their brain. And does anybody have an itty bitty toddler? Or so can we just go back to that place with you of that irrational, rigid child that like what knows that in that where there's no flexibility, and there's no memory of like having learned something new before sometimes. In times of stress, that's how our kids are. It goes right back to that stage. So let's talk a little bit about in the brain, the neuroscience of what's happening here. So we have the amygdala as our smoke alarm, and the smoke alarm, it might be firing, well, because it's the alarm, the job is to keep your child safe. And it's constantly scanning for danger in the environment. And when stress starts to come up, whether it's academic pressure, whether it's fear, embarrassment, conflict, the alarm is gonna go off and say like, ooh, something's wrong, be on the alert. And for some kids, that alarm is still trying to grow and figure out exactly how sensitive it needs to be. So some kids have more sensitive amygdalas than others. So, you know, it's gonna say something's wrong. Even if the danger isn't that big to you or to others, it might feel, the brain is saying it's big. So then we have the anterior cingulate cortex, which we are gonna call our, I mentioned prefrontal cortex, sorry. In this, I misspoke in the previous slide. The air traffic control, our anterior cingulate cortex is like air traffic control, which is the one saying like, okay, what's important and what's not? What needs to happen first? What needs to go next? That is the director of the traffic in the brain. It's like, this is important, but this is gonna be more important, so we need to shift here. And when stress is high, that air traffic control function is like, well, everything's important now. There's just too much. There's too much going on. So everything's important. So everything is going to get more attention, even when something doesn't maybe warrant the attention it would, you know, at a time of stress. So we have our wise owl in our prefrontal cortex. Our wise owl is able to help think big, prioritize, order, exercise control, calm, make thoughtful choices, prioritize, balance. Now, when the fire alarm is going off and the air traffic control thinks everything is important, wise old owl's like, flies away, coop, flies, gone. So then we got what's happening. There's no judgment left. And then, to boot, we have the hippocampus, which acts sort of like the brain's orientation to time and memory. And it helps kids know, like, this has happened before, remember? And you're gonna be, you were okay then and you're gonna get through this now. Or the orientation to time, that this panic attack won't last forever. Or this period of stress is only so long and you have something on the other side. Under stress, the calendar gets really messy. I just think of like the good old like the Rolodex of like the day and the month and the year. I see things in movies now and I'm like, my kids have no idea what that reference is. Anyway, so this future fear is happening like right now, like in the moment. And they also may struggle to remember that they received instructions or previous lessons learned. And that can come out, as I mentioned, this is that inability to think of time is really prevalent in panic attacks. So put all this together, just to recap: loud, overload, offline owl, no orientation to time. So think for a moment of your child that I asked you to identify and think about. Does everybody have that child in mind? That one who might need a little bit more help. How can you turn to like a person next to you, beside you, somebody, and like connect how this might be a way to understand what's happening in your child when stress is really high? Because when you think about your child and the way they manifest their stress, can you think about where a situation with your child, maybe that when they have had a blow up, maybe they have withdrawn, maybe they have perseverated on a future test, or really gotten stuck on an outcome or performance outcome measures. Can you talk to the person next to you about how maybe you could see how they were kind of not oriented to the present time, or like they couldn't figure out what was important to them, or maybe they were seemingly not able to think logically, or maybe they were firing off their amygdala over something that really wasn't that big. Maybe it was something really small, not something that you thought really would warrant the level of their distress. Does that make sense? Can you just talk for a minute and try to make those, see if you can make those connections?
Well, obviously, are you talking about what I think you're talking about? The cheese. Something about Myra. Does your son, is he like kindergarten? That's my daughter. So that's my son. So my daughter, she's I'm glad that you
We'll have a few more times to chat with the person next to you. As we know, our kids are not bad kids. Their brains are just overwhelmed. And I do want to acknowledge just a a moment that if your kids, when to seek outside help. Please seek outside help beyond just, beyond, a mental health professional. Or if your child experiences, signs of stress in a way that greatly differs from their peers, which means talking with other parents or observing and seeing how your child somewhat from an objective third-party perspective fits in the group. See if their distress differs in 4 ways: frequency, how often their overwhelm happens; intensity, how long that happens; and if duration in terms of the moment of distress, and over the period of time that they don't feel a sense of relief. A good rule is anything more than a month, start being curious, and 2 months, there should be, definitely be getting help. You want to see if their distress impacts their ability to function academically, and maintain friendships, social connections, and secure relationships within the family. So those are just the heed warning in those situations. I'm not going to be talking about those situations. We're going to be staying in within 1 standard deviation of team behavior. Maybe 1.5. So what is their role then as parents? Well, we're going to have some tools. So you can take notes if you want, but if you don't, that's okay. I have graphics. Your role is going to be to first quiet the alarm. You're going to reduce the air traffic. When you in quieting the alarm, and we'll talk about how these tools apply, but you're going to first be calm with your voice. You're going to lower your voice. You're going to be present. You're going to reduce the air traffic by using fewer words and placing fewer demands on their brain to process. After those 2 things, you're going to invite the wise owl to come back online. Come on back, let's think. And then you are going to then support that calendar. You're going to orient them again to the time and present. So, that is counterclockwise. I usually like to go clockwise, but the brain, counterclockwise around the model. Back to getting the calendar and helping them reorient to the routines and reposition them in the present. So our job is to help restore calm, and before we can expect them to make good choices and live in a way that they do when they are in a less stressed state. So let's talk about the toolkit. I'm going to go into these more in depth, but the overview here, naming, my phone. Oh no, I left it in the car, my feelings will go. Anyway, naming feelings. We're going to talk about naming feelings. And we're going to talk about helping them regulate, a tip to a 60-second reset intervention, the importance of your regulation within yourself, the science of co-regulation, and then linking then to a healthy study habitat and a healthy habitat at home, the predictability of routines during pressure. So let's talk about naming the feelings without shame. So when we talk about naming a feeling, the power of naming a feeling, well, the feelings, naming feelings, emotions, I'm going to use those words interchangeably for the moment. Talk to Dr. Dinger if you want to learn what's underneath all that. But the power of naming means we can externalize it. We can, it automatically reduces the internal distress and the intensity, particularly in the prefrontal cortex, that logical thinking place that likes order, just think of the Dewey Decimal System. Are we not all around it? I mean, what a perfect segue for this. I use the Dewey Decimal System reference and analogy. I used it today with my clients today. When we can name it and put it in an order, it's no longer out there disorganized and floating around. We can name it and reference it with other similar things. So something like sad, and then are we mournful? Are we grieving? Are we distraught? Are we, what else might be sad? Are we just unhappy? So sad has many different layers underneath. If we are anxious, are we afraid? Are we jittery? Are we fearful? So we can start with a big general word, and then we can understand a little bit more what's under that. And that's what it's a nice little circle with the main feelings, and then you get more specific as you go out. I use it so often in my sessions with adults that I now don't have to hold it up because some of my clients have it. It can be very powerful. So we reduce the emotional intensity by activating the prefrontal cortex, which then automatically turns down that threat alarm. Because if we are gaining control over it, we can settle that amygdala. It also shifts the positionality from I am anxious to I am noticing anxiety in my body. It begins to externalize. I am not anxious. I am myself, and I am noticing that there is anxiety increasing in me. It gives a different positionality over the anxiety. I am me, and the anxiety is just here, and it starts to creep up. So we name it without shame. Next, regulate. Just a process. Before we can expect to talk about or problem solve, you have to regulate. So using your mind and your body to effectively downregulate the nervous system, it can be through several different ways to regulate the body. We have a visualization. It's remarkable. As I mentioned, the hippocampus is so powerful with memories and not so good on it. What the beautiful part is when you can remember something, it is like, and you thoroughly immerse yourself in it, it is as if it is happening now in your brain, for example. That's the reason I picked the picture that I had on the very beginning slide. If there is a regular practice of being able to picture a calm and serene place, and imagining, it's a visualization exercise, imagining your body. So let's just think about that for a moment. If we have in our own minds a place where we feel so relaxed, and a guided way to work through this is to think about what senses are in that moment, what you would be experiencing. So in your calm and happy setting, where I hope you are in your minds, it's okay. You can close your eyes, you can be inattentive. I used to teach middle school special ed, it's okay. The sounds, what sounds do you hear? Smells. Taste. Touch. it would be interesting, so we'll come back to the Baird Library. It would be interesting, I wonder, if you were to ask your child that you're thinking of where their most calm, serene place is. And maybe be a little curious. You don't have to do an intervention with them. Just maybe ask. And that way you have that loaded in the future. So that is visualization. A body scan, again, a reference that children right now understand, a Xerox machine. Going as if a magic light, there's gotta be some current sci-fi reference, but anyway, a light going down and tracking in your mind the awareness of what is happening and what you're feeling in your body as that light is passing down. I did this with my students, with my kids when they were younger. I had one who was a terrible sleeper. And then one who wanted to solve world peace every night. And so we would, it was called saying goodnight to all of you, all of you, and we'd start with, let's say goodnight to your head, and then goodnight to your, this is goodnight, your mouth, and then dropping your tongue from the roof of your mouth and letting it rest in between your lower teeth. Anyway, saying goodnight to all, and it still works. I'll pick it. I used to put middle schoolers to sleep in class. Anyway, on purpose. It was a therapeutic class. Anyway, so that one is really effective. You can also just literally step away, like let's just exit the room. Let's just exit this room and this space, and let's change the inputs, and then we're going to return. But we're just going to step out of whatever this situation in this room is, and then we can come back, but we're going to step out. And then we're going to reset. Sometimes that helps reset, but that leads into the reset, where you want to, this is to disrupt the stress response from ramping up, and it is a mindful override. You can do this with through muscle contractions. I'm not going to do it in these shoes, but we could do 20 push-ups. I don't know that. We've been doing some sort of tense muscle contracting exercise that requires focus. It could be a 30-second wall sit. Maybe for your older kids, maybe a whole minute and a half. But doing a plank, doing push-ups, doing a wall sit. For the younger kids, this is a teacher trick also. You could get them moving and break the concentration on whatever it is that they're perseverating on by sending them on an errand. If you have a house with stairs, send them up to a room to get something that's urgent that you really need, and then they come back down and, oh my gosh, that wasn't what I meant. Can you do it back with me? In the classroom, this is the technique of writing a very important note that has to be delivered to the teacher next door. It's urgent, right? Or my stapler really needs to be get new staples, and can you go to the office and get some? So that is helping promote a reset. If you have a kid who really does like movement and dance, it could be before when things are ramping, trying to like let's get some movement, let's dance. And then you can also work with surprise and humor. That has a good, it works for some kids. It might not always work, but if you have a kid who can be disrupted by humor and surprise. Co-regulation. The importance, this is comes from attachment, polyvagal research, theories. This is co-regulating through caregiver touch. Or breathing together, it's using your body's rhythm to help downregulate their nervous system. So, can I touch her? Okay. reported less pain than kids who do not hold their caregiver's hands. Take it with adult research, teens actually, and friends, because our kids, the work that we are doing in promoting the basis of a secure attachment and the ability to co-regulate with another person that we have as parents with little ones, they do that with their peers and romantic partners. It's gone, your use is by 16, my dissertation proved that, but, or showed that, I had some findings, but anyway, round about 9, 10, 11, the co-regulating function as a parent becomes the peers and eventually romantic partners. So you've got two friends looking at a hill. Those that looked at the hill with a friend perceived it as less steep than those who looked at the hill alone. So that role of co-regulation. So how do you do this with your child in a time of distress? It can be through physical touch. It can be through proximity. Simply being within a foot and you lowering your heart rate, you lowering your breath, you doing your lower gut, belly breaths, helps lower theirs. Trauma research says it can we have an effect up to 6 feet on each other's energies. If there's more current research or that's been debunked, I'm open to hearing that. That was the trauma research I'm familiar with. So breathing together, whether you're doing it and they know it or not, or you can do it together. Have you all heard of square breathing? Okay, nostril breathing. That evens and balances, and then the concept of the shorter long in breath, longer out breath. So even if it's a breathe in for 3, breathe out for 5, and it doesn't have to take that long. It could be 3 to 5 breaths. And the last tool in our toolkit is predictability under pressure. This is banking on your routines, but in a particular process. Let's clarify the steps that have been completed in completing a long-term assignment, in studying for a semester exam, in packing for a big trip. Let's clarify the things that have been done, and then name just the one that's next. What it does is it helps minimize the distractions. It helps promote a sense of accomplishment for the things that have been done. It reduces the overwhelm by being able to name and focus on just that next thing. Same concept in credit card debt reduction. The notion of feeling successful in getting one debt, one credit card paid off, and then focusing on the next one. How we can, as adults, identifying what's been done, and that one next step gives a sense of control. So all of these things, it is not my hope or goal that you take away all these and expect mastery. And the point as a parent is to focus on consistency in implementing and supporting your children, not perfection. As parents, it is about trying it a few times and seeing how it goes before we decide that it's not working. Your calm is so contagious. Your tone, your brow, your jaw, your bunny lines. What's another word for this? Your glabellum, I know that one. All of the things, everything is contagious. That your shortness of breath, the speed at which you are speaking, your body posture, leaning forward, closed. I did a Shepherd, and one woman said her mom always gets on her for turtling when she's stressed. So and your size. So your calm is contagious. Yeah, that is, we have a poll, no QR code. But maybe think about a time in the past 2 weeks where you could have used just one of these. You talk to your neighbor about just like which one. You don't have to disclose if it was a really difficult situation or, but like which one of these may have been useful at some point in the past 2 weeks. You talk to your
So probably need to put my
It's me. I'm gonna have to call. I need to have you knock out that plate. It's great. Because we live like, she was way off empathy, and so it was kind of, and then we were talking about like return with psychology. Like this.
Chit chat and discussion. And maybe we've all identified our own happy place to go to sometime in the next week. I want to make sure that I hit some of the other things towards the end about the study habitat. So I'm not going to spend too long here on the case studies, but just to acknowledge if someone struggles with after-school meltdowns, one potential cause is just a nervous system overload. They have kept it together all day. And guess where it's safe to lose it? At home. And they might be tired, and they might just need, so one way to work with that is to help co-regulate, use the co-regulating response. A case, a middle school example, we haven't talked too much about this because this would be a whole other avoidance, also known as procrastination, also known as appears to not care and have no motivation, is anxiety driven. It is avoidance. So a way to get on the back end of that is to reduce pressure, help break tasks down. High schooler, a high achiever who's under pressure, whether that's a particular stressful season or just feels it all the time. What's going to add to is chronic stress, and perfectionism, unrealistic expectations, and thinking that perfection is required and that failure is not an option. And so a response to help get that wise owl back online is first protecting the sleep. The brain needs so much sleep. So protecting the sleep, and then collaborate in the planning. This is let's look at this together. Our brain is so powerful in giving something an assignment of good, bad, or necessary or not. So what, as a parent, you get our friends in. As a parent, this is the second of 3 QR codes. The third one is the 1-minute survey for feedback at the end. Which behavioral manifestation of school stress is the most personally challenging for you personally to respond to? What gets it? What is challenging for you? And then just think about why that may be so. The why question is so not the right therapist question, so I'm not being a therapist right now. So. Is it going up?
It's not for me, it's not.
It takes a second, but it's not.
It's not gonna give any life. It's just not gonna give it.
Restart. That's the 60-second restart.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah, I wish it would work, just another one with lots of different.
So we have, again, we have a number of responses across the board. This just says like we struggle when we see our kids struggle. We've all grown up with our own struggles. I put the why so in there is I wonder why that particular thing is most challenging for you. Is it because you can't identify with it at all? Is it because you struggle with it and you know how to fix it and you're not able to fix it in them? Is it impacts you the most? Is it something else? Something you feel like you can't control or have to live? Does anybody want to share? If it's okay if you don't, I just want to give the opportunity.
I think like one of them, I actually, I had just adjusted it. I think that procrastination, just because you're like, oh wait, I also do that. And it kind of feels like, just holding up place for me to be like, come on, let's get on with it. But I think that's, because it's also something I've struggled with. Yeah, I think a lot of people do in some ways in their lives. So sometimes I'm like, I can just sit here and be okay.
That's really powerful. Thank you for saying that. Like, you don't want your child to struggle in the way you have. So you want to help them get through it now. Yeah.
But they
That
won't
comes
do
from a
it.
place of love. That's so powerful. Yeah.
What I was thinking too with that is, just to sort of piggyback what you're saying, it is very true that oftentimes if we struggle with something, we may know how to fix it, but that may be just the thing we can't fix. So that's when it's good to look to who's next to you. If you have a caregiver with you or something, if you weren't figure out how to do it, then you may not be able to move past it.
You need to bring in the other loving adults in your child's lives. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. So those might be the times where your amygdala is extra sensitive when responding, and a little extra dose of self-regulation might be needed in those situations, or calling for reinforcements. So what do I mean by healthy study habitat? Well, this is the environment, right? This is not in the moment, this is what exists at other times. So our goal as parents, while they still live in our homes, and apparently I don't have older kids, but I hear we still parent after they leave. So anyway, reducing, I see some nods. I'll look to that in a few years, but reducing stress before the actual coping is required. So how do we just like take that baseline before it goes way up to like down here, so that our spike doesn't go as high before the distress is greatest. So as a parent, we can work on that physical space. We can talk about, we need to think about the space around the school-related things. That's not a Pinterest board with cute matching accessories. This is actually fewer distractions. It's actually less clutter. This is having predictable routines, clarity on the timetable for the day, who's picking up, who's dropping off, how much, so then they can organize in their head the many things they have to do. Having materials and things ready to go so that kids have what they need, and that may or may not be physical things. That could be having a resource available on hand. It could mean having the snacks if you aren't going to be home, or if dinner isn't going to be until a little bit later. It is meant to help reduce, or to create, to not have an occasion to be stressed. And that's not to say that we create a utopian society, a utopian home environment for our children, because hard things happen. But to the degree that you can, particularly for that particular child in your mind, think about that physical space. And it's, we could get on this on another topic, but how each of your children might need something differently. The concept of equity is not equal, and equity is meeting each of your children's individual, unique needs for them to be all have the same chance to be equally successful. So then we think about the emotional climate. When mistakes and shortcomings are treated as failures, the brain interprets that failure as danger. There's risk. And when mistakes are, in contrast, treated as a source of information, the brain stays online. So if you think about how you might personally respond to what you see as an error or mistake, reframe that, your co-regulation, being able to use your body as a co-regulator in such a way that that mistake can be information, not a failure. And then finally, the relational expectations in your study habitat. Having clear start and stop times for things. Having parents who are more like coaches rather than enforcers is going to lower the pressure. Having someone come alongside, as Karen demonstrated, rather than coming down in a place of relationship that we all want with our kids is a long, fruitful, warm relationship. And so we want to encode in those times of stress that we are a partner, not a punisher or a person who promotes a sense of shame or failure. All these little things that we can do in our study habitats are building blocks for later in our attachment schemes. The big idea here for the study habitat is that stress management is not only about what kids do, but it's about what we remove and the way we respond to their stress. And when the environment can support regulation, the kids don't have to work so hard to regulate themselves when the stress goes up. Just a show of hands, which one of these three areas, we're gonna go from a place of mastery here, a place of mastery, not struggle. In your home, which one do you feel like you are just killing it? You're stronger, killing it. You are your strong suit, strong suit. Which one in your home do you feel like you do best? Do you feel like you have a healthy physical space? That like comes more naturally to you. Do you feel like you're really stronger at the emotional climate? Or are you stronger with the relational expectations, more of the coaching? Here's when to start, when to stop, what to do next. How about those who feel with physical space? That's their strong suit. Yeah. I'm coming to your house. Emotional climate. Yeah. And what about the relational expectations? Anyone feel like it? Yeah. So when our kids are stressed, we want to, just to recap, name the feelings, reduce the pressure, name the next step, and then focus on the recovery. This last one, the recovery, helps them think, okay, this is gonna end. Like, we are going to recover after this. What is the thing after the big stress? I'm gonna skip this engagement so that we can talk about, instead of saying what's on the left, try saying what's on the right. Now, this is a smattering of elementary, middle, and high. So I'm gonna be quiet for a minute. Can everybody see? Okay, I'm gonna be quiet for a minute. In these replacements, what is one of these? I'd like to hear from you all. If you were to use one of these replacements or a variation of it, which one would you use? Would anyone like to say aloud to the group? Or would it be safer to just say it to the person next to you? Maybe the person next to you. Yeah. Just say the one thing that you might, go ahead.
The one that just popped up to me was your feelings make sense given what's happening.
Yeah. That matters. Yeah.
Short break.
Yeah.
Especially like a lot of the students that were coming to my mind about were the ones that are very kind of high achieving, and so they have very sharp sense of logic, and but then they'll get overwhelmed with their emotions, and so
And then the logic
this is a way to help them.
Yeah, the
move up
logic is
from it.
gone. Like, and when we name the feeling, remember when we can name and get the feeling under control, and shut that amygdala alarm going off, we can eventually get the thinking part back.
Because feeling can be logical too.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
And I think that you can rest when you're done. When I look back on my childhood, that was a very normal thing. Like for people to say, you know, get it done and then you can chill. But it felt like I was never gonna get there, right?
There was
And so-
always something more.
Yeah, and so I think it's important for me now to realize that that was a struggle for me and to try and reframe it in this way for my kids. They can see it that way.
And that break is not laziness. That break is not laziness. That break is a moment of recharge. That break is my way of seeing, okay, this is how much more I have to go.
I would say a lot of times, with my kids or kids even at school, especially little ones, particularly in the lower division and middle division, fairness is very important, and what they have on their mind at that moment, this matters, and that is the real deal. So if you say something similar to it matters right now to you, I get that, or what you have to say is important, and I wanna hear that, and okay, I get that, and reflect on that. I think in my experience, that has been very powerful.
That, yeah, it feels so big in that moment. Yes.
This is a grandchild, so I've had 4 other attempts before this one. So he has the benefit of many years. I must say, I wish I could go back to my true children, well, they're all children. But I have learned that the plan, the work, and the recovery, what I do with our grandchild is, I say, okay, when do you expect to do this? I enable him to be a partner,
Yes.
because I just want it done. I want it done, I want it off my checklist. But if I take a deep breath and say, okay, when will you do this and when will it be done? Then he says, I'll do it in a half hour or an hour, and he does it.
Oh.
So there's not the struggle of two of us bumping heads,
Yeah.
because I want it off my checklist. It's his checklist. And so I have to give it to him. Does that make sense?
That's so empowering because shocking, whose needs are being met?
Yeah.
Oh, his.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Thank you. I think that, I can really relate to that. Somebody had to help me with that one. Doesn't matter what I do there, because still have to go talk. Anyway, Vernon, as it doesn't always translate. So, and let's honor the context. I encourage you to think about your village and to think about those folks around you, your teachers, administrators, counselors, coaches, activities coordinators, clubs, advisors. The stress may be manifesting differently in different settings. At home, you might get meltdowns, avoidance, obstinance. At school, there might be quiet compliance and like there is still underlying stress underneath. So I encourage you, think about yourself. How would one of your coworkers, how would your child, how would a friend say you act? And how do they know you're stressed? Probably different. It's probably different. So I encourage you to reach out. I know Dr. Diener had talked about some of the things, as you know, some of the wonderful structures here in place, but I was so excited to hear about the mindfulness. Wow. Small groups that are accessible now, and encouraging the participation in the stress busters before exam period, and seeing how your child might be, what they might be learning, and how they might be demonstrating and manifesting their stress outside of the home. We do have some, I think about, questions I get asked. So I just tried to preempt the Q&A time here a little bit by putting this up here. Which one? What are we chuckling at? Which one? I love the laugh.
I like the red zone ones.
Huh?
The red zone ones.
Yeah, so this is the, we name it, right? We name the feeling, right? You're in your red zone, okay? Your red zone's you know, and it's like, oh my gosh, you know what, my dog does this, to ring the bell, to go outside, she doesn't need to go out, she just doesn't want me petting the other one, so she, you know, anyway, they know. So, obviously, way to go, smart kid, figured it out. This is a tool, it's not an exit ramp for getting out of things. You know, I hear that you are misusing the tool, maybe you're misusing the tool. What do you need right now instead? You know, do you need a break? Do you need 5 minutes and then we'll start the chore that you're trying to avoid? You know, you're signaling you need something, what is it? So it's just a misuse of the tool. On that top one, I think, okay, great. Laughter is great. Remember I mentioned humor? Okay, great. They might be laughing at you, but at least they're laughing. They're breaking the cycle of stress. And on that last one, let's avoid, like we talked about before, avoid minimizing the distress that they feel. You know, it was, you know, try saying something like that was a really tough assignment. What did you learn about your study process? You know, the grade is done. The learning of how that occurred, if it is distressing to you, is what matters now. What can you do to learn from that? So, I love additional scholarly reading. I'll never get out of my teaching zone for that. Here is the quick 1-minute feedback survey, and I'll let you scan it, and then I will just do a little wrap up.
Well, Margaux, can you back up? Oh, sorry, your lecture.
I don't even know if I noticed before. Did you see the titles of the last slide?
Yes, I'll go back to that. So as you are, not to do what I just said not to do, which is to cognitively overload, just the main points. Calmness is a skill that we want to teach our children. Regulation precedes the learning, and small daily tools and choices